Hello there, Thralls of Metal, in your face, once again. Album review time. I'm Rin.
Necrotic Nick.
And we have Blood Red Throne. Nonagon. That's where the UFC fighters fight in. They fight in the Nonagon.
In the Nonagon.
Yes.
This also comes out on the 26th of January on Soul Cellar Records. This band formed in 1998 in Norway. This is their 11th album overall. I have been a fan since their album Alter Genesis. I pretty much dug that one. I think I heard the song Metification, and I was off the races. I ended up buying up all their stuff, which is no surprise to anyone that watches this channel.
He likes to collect.
I do. We actually went over their last one, Imperial Congregation, on the channel, which was an absolute banger. These guys are straight up just gnarly, chuggy death metal, very meat potatoes, very aggressive. And this one marks a little bit of a change from the last one, namely in terms of a lineup change. This is the first one with frontman Sidri Johnson. I don't know how to pronounce either one. I'm sorry, man. This comes after the departure of Yngve Bolts Christensen, who left last year. He was the vocalist on the last three. So this one has a little bit of a different feel to it, mainly because this vocalist is a little bit different. Pretty much across the board, if you've been listening to this band for almost any number of years, you kind of know exactly what they sound like. They are just in your face, chuggy, very aggressive, very old school death metal in the vein of like Cannibal Corpse, maybe Suffocation, lots of groove, lots of just nasty riffs, and that is once again on display because this band is consistent as hell. Now it does open a little bit differently because generally this band just kind of launches, like just right out of the gate, explosive as hell, but their opening track on here, Epitaph Inscribed, is notably like a little bit more of a slow build. Yeah,
it's got a creepy guitar intro that builds up into almost a pig squeal.
Yeah.
And that's the first taste of the vocalist, which he doesn't really do that kind of pig squealy kind of thing anywhere else, really, which is strange.
Yeah, it's kind of a low guttural vocal, and then you kind of get to his low vocal range.
Yeah.
Which honestly is like a little bloodbath-ish, like kind of like Michael Ockerfeld.
It's crispy.
And this song is notably just groove-laden, heavier than hell. You get some blasty pockets, big chuggy riffs, big stomping, grooves and such. Like, yeah, this band comes in angry, but it's a little bit more sinister and moody. But by the time you get down to the second song, Ode to the Obscene, you still get that kind of like mid-tempo chuggathon vibe, but you start noticing this vocalist can do a little bit more. Generally, in the past, the guitarist Dodd has been doing most of the higher screams in the band. This new guy can do high screams, and he kind of sounds like Trevor.
He sounds a lot like Trevor.
Yeah, like, honestly, with his vocal switch-ups on here, the lows aren't very similar to Trevor from Black Dahlia Murder, but the highs definitely are.
Definitely, yeah.
And this kind of comes off as like almost like a Black Dahlia Murder bolt thrower hybrid, except they're playing like dying fetus level intensity.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, yeah.
Yeah.
While the guitar riffing is real chuggy and stuff, the leads are kind of all over the place. Sometimes they start before the vocals. There's a little lead section. Sometimes it's different lead sections towards the end. You get a little bit of the dive bomb wheelie-doos, and you get some noodly stuff, and then you get straight up robot Morse code a la Tom Morello and a split-tongue sermon, which I'm sure they're communicating to the bots.
Yeah, no, that one sounded like almost like a Frederick Thorndal Meshuggah lead. It was like, I'm just hitting notes. The aliens have received the communication. The subjugation will begin. I'm also on the side of the aliens. I'm just letting you know.
They know.
A lot of this is very groove-laden. Like, I mean, groove has always been a huge part of their sound, but they, generally vary it up a lot. You get some good blast beat sections, some more like thrashy sections. This one in particular, I feel like really just hangs on the groove. Like, pretty much every stomping riff you hear that's that sort of like bolt thrower, double time, sort of just kind of tank driving over you sort of rhythm. You're almost guaranteed a halftime section after that. A little bit of the bell ride going, and that is pretty much on repeat throughout this entire album. There are faster songs that kind of stay a little bit more on the thrashy side, like Blade Eulogy, which is notably kind of like a more bombastic, energetic song. Like, it stays more high-paced, and The thrashier riffs on there really kind of stand out. Like, it kind of gives this album a bit of a shot of energy, because before that you're mostly kind of in this groovy realm. Like, you get blast beats as like accents. They're almost like transitions.
And pretty much you're just doing this the whole time. The tempo shifts, but it's still pretty much 4/4. You can just keep it going. The thrash comes out in the song Every Silent Plea, which almost has a Lamb of God kill switch kind of vibe. And there's not one, but 2 bass drops before breakdown bits in that song. I think I counted 5 different bass drops in this album. And ordinarily I would be upset with it, but they're cool because they're not in a new metal, hip hop kind of way. It's usually right before the breakdown. But my only problem is once the bass drop hits, it's like you're missing that frequency after the bass drop fades away.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I kind of noticed that in the production too. Like, you know, the bass, unless, you know, Gunnarson's doing some really cool bass flourishes, it kind of can disappear into the background. And Gunnarsson does some really cool, like, noodles behind the riffs. Like, the whole thing with them, like, kind of just doing that big open chug is underneath there's like room to kind of play with the melody a little bit, and Gunnarsson does a great job with that. I do think his bass work stood out a bit more in the last one, and that was partially probably due to the mix. Like, the mix on here I think is good. Like, it's a little bit flat. Like, you know, the guitars have a good chug, the drums are really pounding, but I feel like, you know, the bass is kind of missing, or it's at least more indistinct, like, especially on that low end.
Yeah, that's like, when you hear the bass, it's really trebly.
But those bass drops cueing breakdowns, sometimes they really work. Like, the breakdown on Split Tongue Sermon, it's flat out brutal death metal. Like, it is like a Dying Fetus style kind of slam riff that comes in there. And it's interesting because it stands apart from a lot of their groovier sections. They're kind of groove-based little, you know, breakdowns where, you know, again, bell ride, kind of halftime it, is all over here. So hearing a breakdown that kind of stands out for, like, some different reasons, like, oh yeah, that's just notably more brutal. That does make it stand out a little bit more. There are some other flourishes in here that pop up that, I mean, they have popped up before. Like, you do have some melodic death metal moments that pop up on Every Silent Plea and Nonagon, the title track. There's a whole section on there where they essentially kind of like dry hump and almost Amon Amarth style riff. Like, it's that mid-tempo, anthemic, you know, we're going into pillage and burn sort of vibe. And, I mean, it's done like a little bit more savagely because, you know, this is definitely a heavier band than Amon Amarth. But, you know, it was something I definitely noticed. And, well, overall, like, this definitely covers pretty much everything I want from Blood Red Throne. But, I don't know, there's just something kind of missing, mostly around the middle of the album. And honestly, I think it's a bit of the energy.
The song Seeking to Pierce and the title track, like, I could have done without them, really. I think if this album had 2 or so less tracks, it would be more potent, be more of a refined whiskey. Yeah, you don't want to add too much tomato juice in your chili. You want to robust those flavors.
Yeah, don't thin the mixture.
No.
Yeah, and that's kind of, like, honestly, that's kind of a perfect parable there. I do feel like this is kind of like thinning the mixture. Like, this band is grossly consistent. And pretty much if you're a longtime fan of Blood Red Throne, you're going to hear a lot of the stuff that you love about this band. And the thing with, like, consistent bands that have, like, one sound where they just keep churning out the bangers that you expect. Like Incantation, Cannibal Corpse, Immolation, Black Dahlia Murder. You know, there's a thing that you expect, and you don't expect really change in there. Like, at least not major ones. Like, you know, subtle changes. But when you're not expecting, like, change in a band like that, you're kind of looking for the energy in the delivery. And at least in comparison to, like, past releases, I feel like this one is, well, like, kind of waning on energy, and like, it feels like a little bit stock at times.
Some of the songs almost feel like they probably wrote them in a day. Not that they're rushed or bad songs. It's just like, yeah, here's a kick-ass riff and moving on.
Yeah.
Like, it maybe didn't give it enough time to mature.
Yeah, like, often, like, the lead sections don't feel like they're fully fleshed out. They often kind of float between, like, a lead melody or, like, a flat-out solo. Like, they can't seem to figure out which one they want to be. Like, sometimes you get, like, something that is decidedly more shreddy and kind of going, like, off the melody a little bit. And other times you're kind of getting like a repeated melody on top of the riff. And often I kind of feel like there could have been more done, like those could have been like more fleshed out just in terms of making like an impact moment. And you can definitely tell when they kind of went for it a little bit more in terms of songwriting. Like the last track, Flesh Rend, honestly, it's probably the most dynamic song on the album. It's lots of cool transitions. The riffs have some urgency to it. It's a great tremolo harmony right at the gate. Like it just opens up heavy and sinister. You kind of get everything they do well in one song on here, but it's kind of just packed in tightly and just, again, well executed.
Yeah, it's a good closer. There's really cool drum accents in the verse. And at the end, there's almost like a little bass lead.
Yeah.
And it's just the noodles that you've been hearing before, but like a bunch of them all together. A big plate of noodles.
And riff sauce.
Riff noodles and riff sauce.
And when it comes down to like the pacing of this album in terms of how things are set up, I feel like you get this kind of big valley in the middle. Like the last three songs, I feel kind of bring up the intensity a lot. And it opens pretty strong with some kind of different songs. Like they still have all that brutal, punchy energy that this band is known for. They're just a little bit different, like a little bit more lumbering, a little bit more atmosphere to them. Like there's really great distant riffs in those first two tracks. But around the middle, I don't know, I feel like it needed a pick-me-up. Like a song like Blade Eulogy, put that more towards the middle and like kind of like right around Tempest Sculptor, which opens up very just aggressive, like with blast beats, but it kind of settles back into that groovy pattern that a lot of this album kind of hangs out in. And that kind of lull in the middle, it kind of dulls the impact because this band is all about impact. They want you to just feel the power of all these chugs and just beat you over the head with them. That has pretty much been their MO since, I would say, their inception. And I was kind of missing a bit of that. So overall, I'm going to give this 3 stars. I think this is a good album. This is just kind of what I expected, but I mean, admittedly, after the last two, which I think really had like some excellent songs on it, and they were just explosive and violent and hooky as hell, this one falls a little bit short. It's still packed with chuggy riffs. There's some really interesting leads on it, and I do like Sidri, or I don't know how to say her name. I'm already sorry about that. Yeah, I think he's got really good vocals. He adds a different dynamic to their sound because he's got these cool high screams too. I just wish there was more to the formula because this one feels like they really stuck rigidly to the formula and kind of slowed it down a little bit. You know, the last album, again, the songs just exploded. Like they were instantly catchy, instantly just punchy as hell. Some of these songs really taken entirely too long for them to grow on me for a band that I've been listening to for this long. But still, if you're a big fan of like Cannibal Corpse and just like riffy, groovy death metal, like maybe a more brutal sounding Jungle Rot, very similar right here. Check them out, give them a chance. Who knows, you might really dig this.
So yeah, I really only got into these guys for their last album, so that was 2021, and then the album before that was listening to that one. So I'm not a 25-year fan of these guys. So I'm gonna go with a 3.5. I do dig it. There are a few songs that are but the songs Flesh Rend, Tempest Sculptor, Ode to the Obscene, there's a couple others that are just banging your face off. I do like the meat and potatoes. There's nothing overtly flashy. Maybe you could use a little more salt and pepper in your pot pie. The new singer, I really like his death growls. You can understand most of what he's saying, and they're nice and crispy and not too gurgly. His highs are good, but they sound a lot like Trevor, and that makes me a bit sad. Yeah, and maybe a little more low end on the production and maybe a little less bass drop, and this could have went up a little bit, but I say check it out. I say check out Blood Red Throne, all of their stuff. If you want to get punched in the face and maybe bob your head a little while getting punched in the face, this will do it.
Yeah, go see them live. That's pretty much them live. You getting punched in the face and them riffing.
Sounds fun.
Not so much for your face, but it sounds like fun for me.
It heals mostly.
Yeah. Who needs teeth?
Yeah, they grow back.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below with thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel down in the banner in the right-hand corner, I believe. But thrallsmetal.com is where you go to get Thralls Metal stuff. We have new shirts. We have old shirts that are discounted, provided we have your size. We even have some hats. So if you're looking for any of that stuff, thrallsmetal.com down below in the description. And of course, Thank you guys so much for liking, subscribing, following. January's almost done, and I think it got off to a pretty decent start. Yeah. So yeah, we got a lot of year to go and a lot of releases to cover and a lot of rankings and all that fun stuff, because that's what we do, and we love that you seem to love that.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you guys once again. Tons of stuff coming in the future. Trust me, there's gonna be some busy weekends ahead. But yeah, you guys absolutely rule, and we will catch you later.